Hey Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, leaders react to reports that many of us just can't maintain social distance. The state's hospital workers cope with the crisis. And Coach Cal says there may be 5 cats ready to turn pro. All that and more is next on Hey Kentucky. Welcome to Hey Kentucky with LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. Keith, did you have a good weekend? It was just so beautiful outside.
It was wonderful to be out there and get things done around the house, and took a nice long walk and saw a lot of dogs and a lot of people walking through the neighborhood, running, biking.
That part is nice, but seeing a lot of people is starting to drive some other people nuts, right? Social distancing may sound simple, but it seems a difficult message for Kentuckians and others to accept during this COVID-19 crisis. Whether it's in your own neighborhood or at the local Walmart or grocery store, social media is filled with images of people continuing to gather in crowds across the bluegrass as the spring weather sets in. One example is in Louisville, where the mayor reacted to a Facebook video that appeared to show hundreds of young people gathered on a downtown street corner Friday night watching some type of street racing.
We will be dispatching our police department as best we can to this, but we can't cover everybody, and government is not the answer to everybody. We need parents to step up, know where their kids are, keep them where you can see them.
Greg Fisher also addressed complaints about crowding on golf courses, saying they've been kept open because golf is one of the few sports you can play and maintain a 6-foot distance. But he warned that he would shut them down if necessary. Lexington Mayor Linda Gordon announced today that she's closing parking lots, restrooms, and playgrounds at city parks. And Governor Beshear says everyone is responsible for maintaining social distancing at stores that are still open, asking you not to go in if the crowd is too large. And Keith, it does sound simple. It is just not that easy. I know we all need to do it, and I'm trying so hard, but it's not easy.
It's not in us as humans to not be around others, want to say hi and hug and shake hands and all of that, and it is difficult. And there was a place that I went out to this weekend. I had to pick up a few items, and it was packed, jam-packed, more than maybe I've ever seen it. But it's also nice weather. People are wanting to do things around their house. In order to do that, you've got to go pick some things up, and I'm sure that's what a lot of those folks were doing.
I know, and I think a lot of it is innocent, right? I don't think they're trying to, blatantly break the rules. But Governor Beshear is asking folks now who live along that Kentucky-Tennessee border to not travel to the volunteer state, where cases there have spiked. They now have crossed over into the thousands, including over 100 at this Tennessee nursing home. At last word, Tennessee's governor had resisted calls to take the same aggressive steps that other leaders have taken. When Beshear was asked on Friday whether he would consider closing the border, he left the door open.
I think that we consider different options every single day. I'm not there yet, but we're going to have to look at what it's going to take to make sure that if in Logan County all of these restaurants have shut down, that sacrifice is simply not frustrated by the county to the south. It's not fair.
At last word, Beshear's advice to Tennessee border residents was to only travel there if required for work, helping a loved one, or maybe a grocery trip if it's closer. And Keith, that's something we should do.
Exactly, and not only that, because I think Kentucky has been way ahead of all the other states, in getting us out, making sure we're social distancing, doing what we need. So you don't think about that often, but you've got those borders around you, and Kentucky has 7 of them, I believe it is, and so you got to be thinking about that and doing what you're doing in Kentucky when you travel to those other areas.
Tennessee's been the slowest to adapt of those border states. All right, the most difficult stories from the COVID-19 crisis are coming from our hospitals. In Louisville, one of the city's largest employers confirmed last night that 45 of its employees have tested positive. A spokesperson for Norton Healthcare says the test took place over the last several weeks. It's a stark reminder that Kentucky's doctors, nurses, respiratory specialists, and other health workers are on the front lines, sometimes working with a shortage of personal protective gear or needed supplies. Meanwhile, in some parts of the state, the number of healthcare workers is dropping, with reports of hundreds laid off at Eastern Kentucky hospitals. Keith, it's not just Eastern Kentucky anymore. It's Lexington, it's Louisville. Every place is having to furlough or lay off.
And I guess it's mainly because they're not doing a lot of those elective surgeries and some of those other things. I don't understand why they're not being used on the front lines. Maybe they're just not prepared to help out with that, but that is where they're at, and that's why they're having to let those go.
Yep. All right, the COVID-19 crisis has united many Kentuckians, and it seems that has also extended to our leaders. CNN is reporting on the connection formed between Democratic Governor Andy Beshear and Republican Senator Mitch McConnell. The cable network says the two have been in frequent contact in recent weeks as McConnell shaped the Senate's massive stimulus deal and Beshear led Kentucky's effort to slow the spread of the virus here.
We all seconded his request for disaster assistance, and everybody's pulling together to try to get this behind us. It's not going to go away until we bend the curve. And if people are wondering what they should do, they ought to listen to Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, the nation's experts on infectious diseases, who are on television every day giving us advice.
And last week, the offices of Democrat John Yarmuth and Republican Andy Barr announced that the Kentucky congressmen have been spearheading a bipartisan effort to cut red tape at the FDA and allow distilleries to continue producing hand sanitizer. And everyone has joined hands in hating Thomas Massie. So it's a really good bipartisan week.
It is amazing, though, when you think about these names that are helping each other out, and it's a great thing. It's so refreshing to see them work together, especially in a time like this.
So they can work together. We can do that. It's amazing. All right, let's turn to sports. Coach Cal is talking about his players' plans for the NBA draft amidst this most unusual college basketball offseason. During his first COVID-19 era update last week, Cal said he expected 4 or 5 guys to test the professional waters. He later doubled down on that prediction, adding that he's working on getting information for his players about their draft stock. But during an appearance on the SEC Network Friday evening, Cal went even further, confirming that 5 cats have put their name in the draft. But he's worried that players throughout college basketball will rush into decisions they aren't comfortable with and could ultimately regret.
We're trying to figure out how, with the draft moving, do they have the ability to come back to college maybe at a later date than normal? I'm even saying, what if they go through the draft and they don't get drafted? Come back to college. This is uncertain times right now. The NBA doesn't know when they're going to have a draft. So we can't put these kids in a position where they say, well, if I have to make a decision now, I'm going to go. And then guys, they don't get drafted. And now what do? Well, you can go to the G League for a year and now figure out the rest of your life because you're done. I don't want to do that to these kids.
Although Cal didn't specify which players, the general consensus is that it's Kentucky's 5 starters, Tyrese Maxey, Nick Richards, Ashton Hagans, Emmanuel Quickley, and E.J. Montgomery, the ones that are considering the jump. I actually like Cal's idea. If you don't get drafted, that can be the exception. You can come back.
They've got to extend something because you can't put these kids on such a short time frame to make such a monumental decision. So I certainly hope that happens. And we also have to address, just like Eli Gain tweeted out, Kalahari.
Kalahari, I like that. He's got the quarantine beard, that's for sure. Ellen said he had his razor on social distancing from his razor.
Okay.
All right, now on Hey Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. The Bluegrass State's cut of the coronavirus relief bill signed into law on Friday is about $1.7 billion. Most of that money goes to Kentucky state government, and Louisville will receive an additional $134 million under a provision that gives extra funding to cities with populations over 500,000. Meanwhile, Attorney General Daniel Cameron says that abortions in the state should cease as part of the governor's order halting elective medical procedures because of the pandemic, drawing accusations from the ACLU of a political power play. And the International Olympic Committee has announced that the rescheduled 32nd Summer Olympics will begin on July 23rd, 2021, closing on August 8th. Up next on Hey Kentucky, we'll take another look at the financial impact of the coronavirus. UK trustee and financial expert Quint Tatro updates us on Wall Street right after this.